This morning, book of 1 Samuel, chapter number 17. 1 Samuel, chapter number 17, very familiar passage of Scripture. All the little children in here will know it. 1 Samuel, chapter number 17. I want to look at it in a different light this morning. We know about David, we know about Goliath, we know about the battle, we know about a lot of things that went on there. And those are all true, don't get me wrong this morning, but I think there's some things we can take and apply to our lives this morning and get help. The Bible's no good unless we know what He said. Knowing the truth shall make you free. And I'm glad we can take the truth and we can apply it. Amen. We get the help and the hope that we need and encouragement to continue. 1 Samuel chapter number 17, begin reading in verse number 17. The Bible said, And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brother an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses into the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brothers fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went, and as Jesse had commanded him, and he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army, and David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them, and all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who killed him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the man that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him again after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the man, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why comest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And as we read these verses, like I said, I won't continue reading any further right now. We'll look a little further in a few minutes. Here David's come out there, and he's doing exactly what he's been asked, as we'll look at here in a minute. He's trying to be faithful and trying to be obedient. And as he gets down there to the battle, as he gets ready to go into the war, he thinks they're fixing to fight. He looks around, they're all running like a bunch of scared dogs, the Philistine says in another place. And they're all doing all these things. And his brother, when he's there to encourage and to help, and his own brother starts beating him up and running him down and says, I know why you're here, by the naughtiness of your heart. You're just here for this, and you're here for the wrong reasons. And he said, Hey, what have I now done? What is it I've done that's so wrong? And he asked a question. He said, Is there not a cause? I want to preach for just a little while this morning. Lord, be our helper and thought. Is there not a cause? Is there not a reason? Is there not a reason? You can look back in verse number 17 right quickly where we started reading this morning. The Bible said, And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and take these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. We see that he was sent first and foremost of his father. Why was David down there? His brother asked the question, said, What are you doing here? What's going on? Why are you here? He was sent of his father's why he was here. He was a son just like Eliab was. He was a son, and he had every right to be there. His father had sent him down there to that place to go do that purpose. And it was important for him to go. It was important that he went. His daddy didn't just say, Hey, if you get a chance tomorrow, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, Sissy, just go on down there where your brothers are, and this, that, and the other. And he said, hey, notice what he said, I want you to go, but he said, and run. What he needed to do, it needed to be done quickly, it needed to be done right now. There was an emergency down there, and the father knew that there was need, and he said, I want you to go, but I don't want you to take your time. I don't want you to tarry. I want you to get what you need. I want you to get going. I want you to go. And I thought about how Jesus told us to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every living creature. We need to go. We need to be going right now. Don't go next week. Don't go next month. Don't go next year. We need to be getting the gospel out right now. Why? Because the Bible said today is the day of salvation. Now is the accepted time. He said, look upon the fields, for they're white already. He said, the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. He said, go ye now. Go. Go. Hey, it's getting worse and worse each and every day around us. These men had tried to set this war in camp. They tried to get ready. They tried to battle. And every time they'd go out to battle, they said they set in array for 40 days and for 40 nights here they'd struggle trying to go into war, trying to go into battle. And Brother Dan, they'd finally build up enough courage. They'd finally build up enough unction, if you will. And they finally lined up army against army. And every time they was fixing to go into war, every time they was fixing to do what they were sent for, they was fixing to do the Father's purpose. Every time they were trying to do that thing, here would come that big giant. And you've got that big giant in your life. And I've got that big giant in my life. Every time we purpose in our hearts and in our minds, boy, I'm just going to serve God, and help me back today, and it kept me back yesterday. But Brother William, in the morning, I'm going to get up, and I'm going full force with both barrels, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And we make up our mind. We've done it time and time again right here at this altar. I'm going to go, I'm going to go, I'm going to go. We walk out them back doors right there. That giant standing there. We say, hey, this ain't for me. Maybe next time, maybe next year. And we put it off, we put it off, we put it off. And there's people in bondage. There's people surrounded by the enemy and by the army that's about to be overtaken. And the Father's the whole time saying, hey, go now, run. But I want you to see not that he was sent of the Father, but I want you to see that he was faithful to serve. He was faithful to serve in verse number 18. After he said, and he said, take now into the camp and run, and he talked about all the captains and taking the pledges, and he talked about all those things. Verse number 20, the Bible said, David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him, and he came to the trench as the host was going forth into battle, and shouted for the battle. Here he was, he rose up early, brother, and he got his house in order. You know what you and I need to do if we're going to faithfully serve God this morning? We need to get our house in order. There's some things out of order. There's some things not taken care of. He said, man, I've got these sheep right here. They're going to have to be taken care of. If not, as soon as I head down into battle, I'm going to wonder what's going on with my sheep. I'm going to wonder about this. He said, so I'll just get somebody to keep them and take care of them. I'll get this put in order. I'll get that put in order. But he didn't let it hinder him long. Early the next morning, it's still dark outside. He got up, amen, and he took off, and he headed down that direction. And he got there where the battle was, and he shouted encouragement. A war cry come out. And he said, hey, keep on keeping on. That's what we need our day now. We need some people that's willing to get behind those that'll fight the good fight and encourage them in battle and say, hey, keep on keeping on. Hey, man, preacher, just go with it. But we've quietened down in the midst of battle. Why? Because we've become so defeated and so discouraged by this and by that and by everything else. And now we're not able to continue. As I've already said, they've been in battle, according to verse number 16, for 40 days. The first gun's not fired. The first sword's not been pulled. There's not been anything going on. It's like the children of Israel when they were out in the wilderness. They just kept going around and around and around the mountains. You and I have been in battle for the Lord for how long now? And it just seems like we're going around and around and around in circles, amen. There ain't any victory being given because there ain't no battles being fought. But that's the shape they were in. This is, in my mind, a picture or type of the church. Here you had this army that was once one of the greatest, most feared armies that ever was. God was with them, and the whole world knew it as they come out of Egyptian bondage through the wilderness there. The whole world knew and understood where they were going and what they were doing, and the whole world was full of fear. But now the world stood mocking them. The church was once feared and reverenced and respected by a lost and dying world. Now they stand back and they mock it and they laugh at it. They once all battled and fought in a war, but now they just all sit back and look at one another. As we've already said in verse number 21, here they were lined up. They wanted to do good. They wanted to do right. They wanted to do what needed to be done. But then in verse number 24, that giant kept coming. And every time that problem arose, every time that issue came, instead of them dealing with it, they just go sit back down. And I'm afraid that's what's happened in your life and in my life at times. We've come to a place we ain't willing to fight. We ain't willing to go do what the Father said us to do anymore. We're still in the army. We're still in the trenches, if you will. We just ain't battling like we ought to be anymore. But I want you to see the courage of David in verses 33 through 37. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock, and I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and the uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, and he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto him, Go, and the Lord be with thee. Yeah. David saw the same giant they did. David saw the same army over there they did. David saw the same issues and problems they did. What was the difference between David and the whole army of Israel? He trusted God. He trusted God. All they could see was their situation. All they could see was their circumstance. They could not see the blessing of God and what God had already done for them in their life, like we've been looking at in the book of Isaiah. They had forgotten the deliverance, the peace, the power, the presence, and all those things of God in their life because they were so defeated and discouraged, and they were stuck in the midst of a trench out there because they would not get up and go. David said, Hey, I'm not worried about it. I'm not wondering about this. I'm not fearing that. He said, Man, that bear coming, I killed him by bare hands. He said, That lion coming, I just grabbed him by the beard and smote him. It wasn't any big deal. He said, This Philistine, this uncircumcised Philistine, is going to be the same. He said he's going to be the same. We see his courage. No doubt David saw, the Bible says that he's just a little ruddy shepherd boy. We can read on down through there and we can see he's not very big. He's small. He's just a little old bitty boy. Just a little lad's all he is. And then the Philistine mocks him and laughs at him. And Saul himself, the king of Israel, laughs and says, Hey, you're not big enough. You can't go down there. But I'm glad it's not about the size of the fight in the man, but it's about the size of the God in heaven. David knew he wasn't ever going to do anything. It was God that was going to give the victory. Preacher, what are you talking about? It's bigger than me. It's more than I can handle. Sure it is. But it's not more than God can handle because God's faithful, amen, and He's able. The battle is His. But the victory's ours if you're willing to fight. David could have sit right there amongst them. They could all been defeated, discouraged, and down and out. They could all cried together and wept together. And they could have sit right there and they died. You remember those 3 lepers sit outside the kingdom and said, Hey, why sit we here till we die? Man, let's get up. Let's go. And as they went, the Bible said that God made the sound of mighty chariots. And the army fled and God gave victory. David walked down to that creek down there. He picked up those 5-foot smooth stones. He stuck them in that shepherd's bag. And you say, Preacher, why did he pick up 5 smooth stones? Was he scared and it was going to take more than one shot? No. That giant had 4 brothers standing over there beside him. He was going to whip all 5 of them, amen. And as he got down there, he slung that one stone one time. It smote him right in the forehead, and he falls over on his face. And David cuts his head off right there before him. What are you saying? I'm saying God will give you victory if you'll just trust in Him. Preacher, what are you saying? I'm saying faith is the victory that overcomes this world. The battle's His, amen. But the victory's ours. See, he had a desire to do what the Father had sent him to do. He trusted in God. I remember a lot of these new converts. I remember when I first got saved, I didn't realize the troubles and the trials and the burdens of service and all those. All I knew was trust God. That God come to where I was. He saved me. He took good care of me. He said, except you come with a childlike faith, you ain't coming anyway. I said, those, we try to figure it all out. We try to understand it all. You tell little kids something like, oh, that's how it's working. Okay. And they just trust you and they believe it. And that's the way we ought to be with God. We ought to just trust whatever He says. But preacher, it doesn't make sense. It don't have to, amen. The foolishness of God is above the wisdom of man. I don't need to understand. If God says it, that's good enough. I can trust him, amen. Greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. See, David understood something that you and I don't understand a lot of times. It wasn't David that was going to fight the fight. It was God going to fight the fight through David. He just needs somebody that was willing to stand up in front of a giant. That way God could stood there with him and get the victory. Yeah. You and I, if we'd stand for God, a lot of times God would get the victory. He said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. So I'm going to have to lift up, aren't they? But not only do we see all this, and we see the size of the giant, we see the struggle, we see all these things, we see the sad part though. Here this young boy come down there, he wasn't even in the army in reality, he wasn't even supposed to be there. But when he comes down there willing to do something for God and willing to do something for his nation, we see the envy of the brethren. His own brother was a soldier in the army. His own brother should have been the one doing the fight, but instead he became a hindrance to those who was trying to work and labor. Many today are not willing to fight, though they claim to be in God's army. All they want to do is wound and hinder the brethren. All they want to do is try to beat up and tear down and destroy. I thought about many in our day that's trying to serve God, that keep getting hurt and keep getting hindered. It's one thing if the enemy wounds you, but if you're wounded by friendly fire, that hurts. I got to thinking about the king of the nation, Saul, the king of Israel, standing out there. Here he's standing there. He's supposed to be the one leading by example. He's supposed to be the one leading the army. He's supposed to be the one taking care of the fight. But instead he's trying to bribe the soldiers into doing something. He said, hey, if y'all go out there and fight, they're already getting a payday for going out there. He said, hey, if y'all go out here and fight, if just one of you, any of you will rise up and go out and slay this giant and do this, that, and the other, I'll give you something, and I'll do this, and I'll do that. Why is he not leading by example, saying, boys, let's go down there. If we win this thing, we win. If we die, it's all right. Hey, I want to die in the battlefield, amen. I want to die in a war. I don't want to be something dead and dried up on the sideline, some has been and never was. I want to be doing something for God. He's not willing to lead by example and go into the fight himself. And I thought about a lot of these sissified pansies we got behind the pulpits this morning. That'll stand up and give some little sermonette and this, that, and the other, and they'll stand up and do something, but they won't stand and fight for the Word of God. You know the reason we've got in this church age and the shape we're in? Because men wouldn't stand for what was right. They've turned on one another, they've beat up and battered one another, they've sold out to the devil. In reality, they've gave in to Goliath, and they won't stand in battle. Now they're trying to get a church to go. Now they're trying to get this to go. So instead of doing all that, we'll just bring in other beliefs, other movements, and everything else, and make it easier to where we ain't got to do what God sent us to do. You got to think how much of a difference that'd make if they just lead in the fight. As you look at this thing, in reality, through the physical eye, it looks like a battle that seemed impossible to win. Missy, you work with the little kids back there in Sunday school. If you had a little old boy there about 3 or 4 foot tall standing in front of a 9-foot giant, which one are you going to pick to win that battle? But David said, you come to me with the sword and with the spear. And he said, I come to you in the name of the Lord. Battle's his. David done made up his mind. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to stand in front of this giant. If I fail, it's going to be because God fails. But honey, I've got news for you this morning. Jesus never fails. Yeah, that's right. Jesus never fails. He said, I'll go with thee always, even unto the end of this world. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee, nor fail thee, he said in 2 other places. Right. And you mark her down. When the Father sends you into battle, he sends you into war, you're going to win that battle. As long as you go trust in God in the name of the Lord. See, it seemed like it was impossible for him to win, but aren't you glad that there's nothing impossible with God? There's nothing too hard for God. We've already talked about his size. The battle was bigger. He can handle it. It's more than he can handle. You know what? There's a lot of stuff bigger than you and bigger than me. That's right. I'm glad it's not bigger than our God. Yeah. I got to thinking about all these things. There's so much that could be said about this story. But see, the problem is we've believed. You remember when David went down there, I think it's verse number 42, and when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him. For he was but a youth and ruddy, and and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest down with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh to the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Is that not what Satan does when he's scared that somebody's fixing to do something for God? Is that not why we come down here and we pray and we try to get it right, and when we go outside, you know what? We believe the lies of the devil. We believe that giant standing in front of us. He said, hey, it's too late. Just give up. Just quit. Hey, don't go any further. Don't do this. Don't do that. And what would it have been like if David just dropped his sling and turned and walked off? But you and I, we believe the devil more than we believe God. Well, he's big. He's tough. Sure he is. But he's already fallen, amen. He's already lost the battle. I've read the end of the book, amen. The pit's going to be open. He's going to be bound and cast into that thing. And we're going to triumph and shout the victory. Hey, sure, he can remind me of my past, but I can tell him about his future. He can remind me of this, that, and the other. But honey, I know how it's going to end or how it's going to begin for you and I. I'm glad David didn't let him do all the talking, though, aren't you? Verse 45, Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcass of the host to the Philistines this day, and the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord hath saved not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you in our hand. The Bible said, it came to pass, the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, and David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. He ran to the battle, then he ran to the enemy. That doesn't sound normal, does it? Why? Because he believed God. He trusted God. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in the forehead, and the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face on the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with the sling and with the stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. He trusted God. Many times you and I, we need a weapon. We need this, we need that. We've got the greatest weapon there is, amen. He said, I come here in the name of the Lord. He said, I come down here trusting God, the one you defied, the one you spit upon, the one you've cursed, the one you've wronged all these times. We got to think about all these things. But the problem was because they wouldn't believe God, they put themselves in bondage. Preacher, how could you say they was in bondage? Look at verse number 25. Same chapter. And the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel has he come up. And it shall be that the man that killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house what? Free in Israel. They put themselves in bondage because they didn't believe. You know the reason you've got the issues you've got this morning, the reason I've got the issues I've got this morning, because we haven't truly believed and just surrendered and given them to God. That's why we're still dealing with them. Brother William, you remember that was irreparable when Jesus dealt with them. That was broken, never to be remembered, that was put aside. He's cast our sins as far as it is from the east unto the west. He's buried them in the depths of the sea. He's put them in a bag behind his back. When God does it, it's done forever. The problem is we're trying to do it religiously in and of ourselves instead of just giving it to God. But we see all these things. You and I this morning, we've been sent by the Father. We've been saved by the good grace of God to do a work. And it's a hard work. It's one that's too big and too hard for us, but it ain't nothing too hard for God. I ask you this morning, is there not a cause? Is there not a cause? The Father wouldn't have sent him unless there was a reason for him to be there. David didn't just say, hey, I'm going to get up and go down there this morning on my own. His father said, David, I want you to go. I want you to run. David put his house in order. David left early the next morning. David went down there and jumped out, shouting the victory when he got there, and a bunch of defeated people. Is there not a cause? I tell you this morning, there's sinners that need to be saved. There's a cause for you and I to rise up early and to go and to run. Today's the day of salvation. Now's the accepted time. Tomorrow might be too late. Tomorrow might be irreparable. Tomorrow they might be quenched as tow. Tomorrow you and I might be going out of this place and not here to share it. If David had waited and tarried along, that Philistine army might have come and destroyed every one of them. There wasn't anybody to share the gospel with. You and I keep waiting. You and I keep putting it off. There's enough broken hearts. There's enough broken homes. There's enough sin running rampant right now. The devil's already doing his job. Until somebody stands and takes the gospel, it ain't going to get any better. But there's sinners that need to be saved. I'm just going to read you the points. I got bound down in illustration too much in the beginning. But there's sinners that need to be saved. There's a ton of them in bondage that need to be made free. They need somebody that'll be their David, that'll come down no matter how big the problem is, that'll stand with them and stand for them. God's seeking for a man still this morning that'll stand in the hedge and make up the gap. There's gaps all around. There's a Savior that needs to be presented. We just need to let people know I'm not coming in my name. I'm coming in the name of the Lord. In Him's peace, in Him's joy, in Him's victory. There's saints that need to be encouraged. These people was in the army, but they were defeated. These people was in the army, but they was ready to give up and quit. Or they'd done sat down. They'd been there 40 days and 40 nights. Their next move wasn't toward the enemy. That next move was toward the house. How many in our congregation this morning is defeated? How many in our congregation is discouraged? How many of us in our congregation feel like we already lost the battle this morning and we ain't even got into the fight yet? We see the enemy, we see the issue, we see the problem, and we've done give up. The Scripture needs to be declared. Paul said, I declare unto you the gospel. I love that part when Philip went over to that Ethiopian eunuch, and the Bible said he preached unto him Jesus. He preached unto him Jesus, amen. They're sick that need to be made well this morning. There's situations and there's circumstances all around them. But you and I need to do something about it. Say, preacher, I know I do. If that's not enough to encourage you, if that's not enough to help you, preacher, why should I keep going? Because there's been a reward offered. There's been a reward offered to all that are faithful. Verse number 25, we just read it. And he asked, have you seen the man? Have you seen all these things? He's come to Faisal and he's come up. But he said, the man who killed him, the king will enrich him with great riches. And will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the man that stood by him, saying, what shall be done? You know what he said, Miss? He said, I need you to tell me again. You know what? We need to be reminded sometimes while we serve God. God, would you tell me again how much you love me? God, will you remind me again what you've done for me throughout this life? God, will you remind me again where you found me, what you brought me from? But most importantly, will you remind me where you're taking me to? Those walls of jasper, those gates of pearl. Will you remind me of that throne room over there with the rainbow behind it? Will you remind me of all those wonderful things over there? The singing, the shouting, the victory, the rejoicing. Will you remind me of that glad reunion day when mamas and daddies and brothers and sisters and the redeemed gathered in when the circle's been broken? Will you remind me of all that? But will you remind me that I'll get to stand face to face with the one that loved me? With the one that gave himself before me? You remember what Paul said? Paul said, I fought a good fight, I kept the faith, I finished my course. Henceforth is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, that who the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give. But not to me only, but to all them that love his appearing. Yeah. You notice he said the king was going to give this reward. I'm glad one day after a while the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is coming. And the Bible said he's bringing his reward with him. Yeah. Preacher, what are you saying? I'm saying there's a payday somewhere. We're all going to stand before God. We're all going to give an account of every deed done in this body, whether it was good or whether it was evil. Our works is going to be tried as though by fire. Some will be as silver and gold and precious stones and all those things, but he said some will be as wood, hay, and stone. and it'd be burned up and we'd suffer great loss. I ask you this morning, church, is there a cause? I think we'd have to answer overwhelmingly, yes, there's a cause. I close with this morning, don't stop fighting. Stay in the trenches till the trumpet sounds. See, that was the thing with the war, the trumpet would always sound when the war started. But I'm glad one day after a little while the trumpet's going to sound. And the Lord himself is going to send from heaven. We're going home, amen. Amen. One day after a little while we can say we fought our last fight. I hope we can say we've finished our course, amen. Amen. Preacher, how are we going to do that? By keeping the faith. When that trumpet sounds, the end will come. And all the odds that have ever been stacked up against us will be removed. Why? Because this simple thing, David realized that God is for us. Yeah. And if God be for us, who or what can be against us? Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. I ask you this morning, is there not a cause to get back in this fight? Is there not a cause to stand up and do what's right? But I ask you this morning, David said, now what have I done? I ask you now, what are you going to do that you know there's a cause? If you got need, bring it to God.